I'm Dean, I'm the dad.
I'm Laura, I'm the mom.
And I'm Kristlyn, I'm the daughter.
And together we are Family Plot. Very nice. Thanks for listening, as always. Thanks for joining us. Let's get the housekeeping out of the way. First and foremost, you want to help us out. A couple ways you can do that. First, there's Patreon, where we have 2 levels, $1 and $3. And starting June 1st, if we get 5 people who do the $3 level, our Krista, no, they get to be a guest.
Yes.
They get to be a guest on an episode.
Yeah, we will do a drawing towards the middle of the month on the 21st.
Yes.
June 21st, we're going to do a drawing, and we will announce the winner. And one of our $3 Patreons
get to be
join us.
Right. That's it. And then if you can't do a monthly donation, which is what Patreon is, you can do a one-time donation through Buy Me a Coffee. Of course, if you enjoy the show, please share it on social media.
Share it with friends. Share it with family.
With everyone. And if you don't enjoy the show, please keep it to yourself. Awesome.
What are you talking about tonight, huh?
Well, tonight we go back to the 1850s to meet a unique American, a writer, a journalist, a soldier, and so very much more as we look at the birth and the oh-so-interesting life of one Ambrose Bierce, an amazing American, in this not quite 200th episode of the Family Plot Podcast.
Hey, because we're not quite to
200. No, this is episode 199.
We have another thing that we celebrated this week.
Yes.
Not only was Monday, the 27th, Memorial Day, but also happened to be our Kristlyn's 15th birthday.
I'm 15 now,
So
guys.
happy birthday to you, Kristlyn.
Happy birthday.
I'm 15.
Well, as far as our listeners were concerned, you were 15 when we put out our new promo, which you said you're 15 in there. But, close enough. I'm so proud of you. Stop growing.
I can't.
We are proud of you, but, you're growing a little faster,
you
so
think-
if you could
you
slow
think,
down
like,
just a smidge.
Next year I'm going to have a job.
So like, for slowing down a smidge, she's talking about going to work.
She's in a hurry.
I'm not in a hurry. It's
Because-
just nice to be prepared.
Well, that's
Alrighty. So,
Dean, so what do you got for us?
well, allow me to begin. On June 24th, 1842, in a log cabin near Horse Cave Creek, located in Meigs County, Ohio, Ambrose Bierce was born to Marcus Aurelius Bierce and Laura Sherwood Bierce. Laura, good name.
I like it.
He was the 10th of 13 children, and his father chose to name all his children with names that began with the letter A. Thus, his older siblings were Abigail, Amelia, Anne, Addison, Aurelius, Augustus, Almeda, Andrew, and Albert. And his younger siblings were Arthur, Adelia, and Aurelia.
There's Aurelia and Aurelius. I would get that really mixed up. Were they twins?
No, because
They were older, and then there's the other. Yeah. That is a lot of A's.
That is a lot of A's.
A lot of children.
All together, all
It seems overwhelming with 4 of you. I cannot imagine having 13, especially in a log cabin.
no.
Yeah, no.
If we had or
Can you imagine, all the clamoring for internet they'd have in that house?
well, they didn't necessarily have
They
internet.
definitely didn't.
They had other stuff that they had to like fight over, I'm sure, like food goes in the cupboard, they try to find some snacks. They're just like, who ate the rest of the pretzels?
They didn't get no pretzels.
Amelia!
Really?
His mother was a descendant of William Bradford, an influential Puritan. That being said, his family traced almost exclusively to England, and he was descended from Puritans. The funny part about that is he railed against puritanical values and often spoke out against folks for making a fuss about their genealogy.
Womp womp.
So he had a strong gene pool, but he wasn't.
He wasn't fancy, no. And he didn't see himself that way.
Gotcha.
Yeah. His parents were poor, but they loved to read and instilled in him a love of both reading and writing. His family eventually moved from Ohio to Indiana, which is where Ambrose would attend and graduate school. At the age of 15, he left home because he had gotten a job as a printer's devil, which is essentially an assistant, someone who would mix ink, fetch type, and in other ways help the printer. It is interesting to note that Samuel Langhorne Clemens, better known as Mark Twain, also served as a printer's devil for a time.
Basically, a printer's assistant.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. But they called him a printer's devil for some reason, and I think we should bring that back.
Don't believe so.
No, I think some jobs, you shouldn't be an assistant, you should be the devil. Like, I'm the executive devil.
Anyways, I think it's time for someone to get the attention here, and it's definitely not the one who's been talking a lot.
Okay, well, maybe we'll just let you take a few minutes for Chris's Corner. How about that?
Yeah.
It's not just any corner, it's Krista's Corner.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the corner. How are we doing today, Mom, Dad?
I'm very good. My name doesn't start with A, but I'm okay.
Yeah, you're A, okay.
You have a couple of A names. How about you, Krista? How are you today?
Okay, I have a really bad migraine, but we're working through it.
We are.
We are.
Yeah.
Okay, so as you guys know, it was my birthday last week, and I wanted to talk about
Monday.
Well, yeah, it was my birthday this week on Monday. My bad, guys. I'm losing track of time. I'm going insane on summer break. I want to go back to. Anyways, it was my birthday, and I got a couple of things. I got felt for masks that I'm gonna try to start making. I did. Not right now, not important right now, but I do want to sort of promote it on here once we talk about it a bit more. I just said a word that I wasn't supposed to say. Whoopsie.
It's okay. Dad can maybe it out.
Yep.
It sounds like a word, but it's not.
Hey, anyway.
Anyways, moving on. I got felt for masks that I'm probably gonna start trying to make more often because I need something to do over my summer break. Here.
Wait, so someone
Oh my gosh, the stars.
Wait, so someone grabbed you and touched you, and that's how you're gonna make a mask because they felt you?
No, it's felt like craft felt.
Oh, okay. I was confused.
You silly goose, you. Okay. Well, I got that, and I also got this mug that's really cute. I got the bug, and it has, like, mushrooms and flowers, and I think it's flowers. I think there's mushrooms, flowers, and leaves on it, and it's really cute. I also got a new mouse for my computer, which works very well, and I really appreciate it. Thank you, Dad. That's about it for gifts. That's okay. I had a really good dinner and really good dessert. Oh my goodness, you guys should try key lime pie with whipped cheesecake, with the whipped berry cheesecake. So good. Even Mom agrees. Everybody in my family agreed. Everybody who ate it agreed. I don't think Dad or Lexi might have had a little bit. I don't think Dad or Lexi had some.
I had both.
You had a little bit of both. Did you try them both at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay, she had both too, so I think everybody tried it together, but maybe didn't. Anyways, not a big deal. I wanted to talk about something that I had been, like, sort of watching for the past day. It's called, well, it's on YouTube, and it's from the YouTuber Baddington. I'm sure you guys have heard of it, but it's a horror VHS tape type thing. And it's made from some sort of app. I can't remember what the app was, but it was like, well, not app, but like a Blender type thing, 3D animation. And it's basically just like a bunch of short horror films put together and like added up as like a story.
It's a mixtape.
Yeah, it's a mixtape type thing.
Of horror movies.
Yeah, kind of. They're very short films, so like the longest that they got to was like, I think 10 and something minutes. But it's really interesting. And I recommend going to look at them. They're the Baddington VHS tape. And I recommend watching them and trying to find out the story a little bit, because it's very interesting. Despite being scary, it's very interesting.
I see. Well, that's cool. I might have to check that out. Anything else you want to tell us about in your corner this week?
Pretty sure that's about it.
Alrighty.
All right. Well, what a great corner. Hang on. Let me clap you out.
Very nice. So,
At least you didn't slap me.
well, not this time. But,
Not this time. Maybe next time.
You've only been 15 for a couple of days.
Don't tick us off on a Wednesday.
That's right. So, Ambrose went to work for the Northern Indiana, an abolitionist newspaper of the time. He worked there for a couple of years before attending the Kentucky Military Institute until it burned down. When the Civil War started in 1861, Bierce joined the 9th Indiana Infantry, where he joined the operations in Western Virginia before fighting in the war's first land battle, the battle at Philippi.
It might have been Philippi. I didn't look it up, but
he also served at the Battle of Rich Mountain, where he, under fire, retrieved a gravely wounded comrade and got him treatment. This made several papers at the time, and he was considered something of a hero. Bierce also fought in the Battle of Shiloh, a terrifying battle, and one he would revisit in several short stories, as well as the story What I Saw of Shiloh. Eventually, Ambrose was commissioned as a lieutenant, where he was a topographical engineer who made maps of likely battlefields. He served General William Babcock Hazen. He served with distinction as an officer, and his leaders agreed to sign his papers to send him to West Point Military Academy. Shortly thereafter, he fought in the Battle of Kennesaw Mountain, where he received a traumatic brain injury and was on furlough for the entire summer before he returned to duty. He left the military shortly thereafter, and although he returned to duty when asked by General Hazen to join him on an inspection tour of military installations in the Midwest, by the time the group made it to San Francisco, Ambrose had been promoted to brevet major. However, he left the employ of the military at that point.
Now, something that's not in there, and I found out later, one of the installations that they checked was Fort Osage.
Fort Osage!
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
So, yeah, I guess they didn't do much there, or it would be on a plaque somewhere, but...
No, I don't know that I mean, it may have been something that was there and we just didn't catch it. It's been a couple of years since we've been there.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I didn't see anything about Ambrose Bierce A in there, so I just...
Well, I'm sure a lot of people went through there that they don't have.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I was saying, is that I just found a connection to our show and to us.
Oh,
yeah, so, before...
Just remembering what it was like over there, I kind of want to go back to where that was, even though it was really hot that day. Holy biscuits.
Well, we'll have to see if we can do that sometime this summer.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. In the meantime, how about we take a moment for a word from another podcast?
Sounds like a plan.
South Africa, a country whose spectacular beauty and dynamic people are known the world over. But there's another side to our country, and one that is rarely discussed in the detail it deserves. Join me, Nicole Engelbrecht, on True Crime South Africa, South Africa's first victim-focused true crime podcast, as we go beyond the headlines, focus on the victims, and explore some of South Africa's most heinous, violent crimes. True Crime South Africa is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Wow, that definitely sounds interesting.
Yeah, very.
Sounds quite interesting, in my opinion. I like her voice.
Very nice. Yeah, she's got a nice voice, and that South African accent is
Kind of soothing.
yeah, kind of soothing.
Makes me want to sleep.
You want to take us from here, babe?
I got it. Yeah. So Bierce stayed in San Francisco for many years, becoming a writer and editor for multiple periodicals. He even became associated with Randolph Hearst's Examiner newspaper and became one of the best-known journalists of the West Coast. So we see the Examiner again, and the Examiner would come up later. Well, technically for us, it came up in the past in the Black Dahlia episode.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is not the first time we've run into the Examiner. Bierce went to England in 1872 and stayed until 1875, writing for the magazine Fun and publishing his first book called The Fiend's Delight, a collection of articles written for fun while he's in England. He returns to San Francisco in 1875. Shortly after returning from England, railroad executive Collis Huntington reached out to a friendly member of Congress to get them to introduce legislation to forgive the $130 million loan they were given to help finish the Transcontinental Railroad. That $130 million is worth roughly $5 billion in today's dollars. In 1896, Bierce returned to Washington to oppose this bit of corporate malfeasance. Since the whole idea depended on secrecy and keeping the issue out of sight of the public, Huntington met Bierce on the steps of the Capitol and told Bierce to name his price. Bierce's response wound up in almost every newspaper in America. My price is $130 million. If, when you are ready to pay, I happen to be out of town, you may hand it over to my friend, the Treasurer of the United States. This and many articles Bierce wrote brought the public to anger.
Okay.
The bill was defeated, and the railroads were forced to repay the loan. In 1899, he moved to Washington, which is where he would live until he vanished some years later. I know, I misspelled, but give me a break. You don't do the research, darn it.
You know I would.
All right, Krista.
I think it's
No,
my
Chris,
turn.
you know what I think we should do first before it's your turn?
I think
We should hear from our
maybe
sponsors.
we should hear from our sponsor.
Hey.
Yeah, dear. That's awesome. So do I. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, I feel pretty sponsored.
Cool. Do you feel sponsored enough to take the next bit?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Bierce was a controversial writer, and his writing, right?
Writings.
Yeah, I know that it says writings. It just doesn't sound right. I'm sorry. Would often spin up reactions, well, obviously, from common people and the important people alike. In
1900.
I'm in the or something. 1900. When Kentucky Governor William Goebel was assassinated, Bierce wrote a poem that was published in the Examiner and ended with the following line. And the bullet that Bierce Goebel pressed cannot be found in all the West. Good reason it's heading here to stretch from McKinley on her deer. Like that forward. I don't know. It sounds anyway. Many were alarmed that Bierce seemed to be calling for McKinley's assassination. Yeah. McKinley, is that right?
Yes, President McKinley.
Okay. A year later, when McKinley was killed by an
Anarchist
bullet, many saw the poem as being predictive. Mm-hmm. Maybe he knew that.
I doubt it.
Probably
In
not.
1888, he began writing short stories in addition to his journalistic writings and editorial screeds. Okay. I'm not familiar with that.
A screed is usually like, basically, it's a letter where you're calling for something, and maybe even like with a lot of explosive language, a lot of like, yeah, I really
Like you're trying to rile other people up.
right.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. He wrote many short stories, including An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, which is a short story about a man being hung on a bridge and some interesting things that happen. Owl Creek Bridge is the most anthologized story of all time. Bierce is considered quite the writer. His horror and gothic tales inspired writers like H.P. Lovecraft, and he was considered an equal to Poe. That's pretty high.
Yeah, Edgar Allan Poe.
He is known for being a fabulist as well as a poet. His war stories inspired Stephen Crane and Ernest Hemingway. He is thought by many to be one of the greatest American writers, though these pronouncements made during his lifetime were almost always met with compliments from Bierce towards the compliments author.
And since I'm responsible for writing that line, let me explain what I mean.
Makes sense. So if people would compliment him, Bierce is an amazing writer, then he would compliment whoever was providing that compliment in return. Your writing is incredible. You inspire me.
Right. For example, a famous writer of the day said Bierce is one of the 3 greatest writers of our time. And when Bierce was asked about it, he says, well, surely that guy is the other 2. So,
right. He was. I feel like so far that he would be what we generally refer to as a good dude.
Yeah.
Right?
He was also a bit of a character, but I mean,
obviously we all have our faults.
And we have talked about him before. We did an episode where we did, and I want to say it's probably one of our Christmas or Thanksgiving where we all do little stories. We mentioned his disappearance because it is the most famous unsolved literary disappearance in America. But yeah, it may be the most famous ever, but still. So we've talked about him before, but this is a different aspect of the man. Like, he accomplished all this. Remember, he had what they considered a devastating brain injury during the Civil War. And we haven't talked about it yet, but from the rest of his life, he will suffer from fainting spells and bouts of irritability because of it. And which, I don't know if we can blame the irritability on that. He seemed to be a fairly irritable guy before that. Like, he doesn't put up with a lot of foolishness.
He didn't have time for foolishness. The boy was one of 13 children in a poor household. Started out living in a log cabin in Ohio. I mean, I can imagine that he probably, had to know how to live lean and had to be pretty strict just to make it through his childhood.
Right. So, but yeah, we know he suffered after that brain injury. So, I mean, and he accomplishes all of this still.
Absolutely.
Bierce's personal life was often marred by tragedy. He married Mary Ellen Day in December of 1871. They had 3 children, his sons Day and Leigh Bierce. I think that might be Lee, though. I couldn't find a consistent pronunciation.
Uh-huh.
And his daughter, Helen. Day was rejected romantically, shot the woman who rejected him and her fiancé before turning the gun on himself.
Oh.
Both the woman and her fiancé survived. Day did not. Lee died of pneumonia related to alcoholism. And Ambrose discovered letters from Mary Ellen's, he and most others called her Molly, admirer, which indicated that they had been in contact for quite some time. The 2 separated in 1888 and divorced in 1904. Molly Day died the following year. Bierce had asthma his entire life, and we were just talking about, suffered from fainting spells and periods of irritability resulting from his traumatic brain injury. Bierce was a lifelong atheist and never believed in the divinity of Christ, meaning he believed Christ was a great teacher, gave him all the credit for that, didn't believe he was related to God at all.
Well, I mean, if he's an atheist, that's kind of goes with the... So, in 1913, Bierce went south to visit some of his old battlefields before passing through Louisiana and Texas, and from there into Mexico. He joined Pancho Villa's army as an observer and came to observe the Battle of Tierra Blanca. Around this time, he sent a letter to longtime friend Blanche Partington stating that he was on his way to an unknown destination. He also said that if she read of him being stood against the wall and shot, it was a pretty good way to go compared with old age, disease, or falling down the stairs. Skeptic Joe Nichol says that no one has ever seen Bierce's letter to Partington. We only know about it because it's mentioned in Partington's secretary's notes. Nichol believes that Bierce went to some secluded place near the Grand Canyon and took his own life.
Oh.
However, in the investigations that followed, difficult though they were, because they were instigated by American and executed by Mexican authorities, which then had to be reported back. Interviewing a priest, he said that he had seen Bierce shot up against the wall in the local cemetery. To this day, no one knows what became of Bierce, and we have talked about his disappearance in previous episodes.
Ambrose Bierce has influenced modern culture in many ways. We talked about how H.P. Lovecraft cites him as an inspiration. Lovecraft, however, was an inspiration for a guy named Stephen King. You might have heard of him. And of course, there. I want to say his name is Owen Hill, Stephen King's son, the guy that wrote Nosferatu.
Okay.
Yeah. Interesting. So, and he was influenced by his father. So Ambrose Bierce, who is considered one of the greatest American writers of the 1900s, is still in a way influencing people to this day. His stories have been widely read, and many, like Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, have appeared in other anthologies, as well as have appeared in TV shows like The Twilight Zone or been made into movies. Old Gringo is the fictionalized story of Bierce's death in Mexico, which was also part of the movie From Dusk Till Dawn 3, The Hangman's Daughter. Bierce and his disappearance have featured in books and comics and is still a mystery people are attempting to examine to this very day. And and that's something else too. You got to remember that when the people were investigating his disappearance back in the day, it isn't like it is now. There weren't phones. There wasn't internet. It wasn't immediate communication. It was letters. It was letters and messengers and people on horseback. And so even getting the information that you have to the right person who's going to filter it down to the people that are going to do the investigating, that's a months-long process. And then, that guy doesn't do it himself. He's in charge of people who do it. So he gives it to...
Things can get lost, or they can get smudged, smeared, destroyed during these months that they're going from one person to one person to one person. Things were automated like they are now. Things weren't instantaneous like they are now. Everything was this long, drawn out process.
Right. And there were so many moving parts that we'll never have all the information to get all the answers.
Yep.
Because that machine chews things up. It did in the Jack the Ripper murders, which we've also talked about. That's what destroyed them, is just time.
Yep.
Just time and not having, it all being kept on paper and photographs, and that stuff just has a way of...
Things happen.
Yeah. And like I said, in addition to that, the difficulties you have here is like, you can only investigate so far. Well, he wasn't in the country when he disappeared. So now you got to go get, send someone to the Mexican authorities who are going to go, okay, we'll look into that. And then they send a guy and he writes a report. And then that report goes up the chain. And again, it's another several months while they send a guy to you. And then you tell someone that and they go, oh, well, we don't believe that. Why? Because of this. It's just like, we are so, I hate to say it because I sound like a boomer and I'm really not. But we are so spoiled now by just how quickly and how fast information flows. We forget that,
we are quite privileged to have all of what we have now: computers, internet, phones, anything like that. We are privileged to have that because anybody who, had to, go through all of that shipping process, and they didn't even have, trains or anything, horseback. That's what they had to deal with, and,
well, they did have trains because of this.
They had trains, but
it was still kind of in its infancy, It
wasn't big. What I'm trying to say here is they had to find a way of doing things because, how today sometimes packages get lost in the mail and things like that.
Yep.
That must have been so much more difficult to deal with.
Oh, for sure.
Back then than it would be now.
Yeah.
So we really do have the upper hand in things now. We really do. We really are quite spoiled, as Dad said. And a lot of the times we don't really notice that. We don't really care.
What? It's so different, though. I mean, at the end of the War of 1812, right? Everybody talks about Colonel Jackson's thing where he routed the British in Louisiana, right? They even made a song about it. But the thing is that technically happened after the war was over. Because a treaty had ended the war, but because of how long it took things to get places, the people on the ground were still fighting.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so when the peace was declared, Americans felt like they'd won it because they just routed them in this big battle, which is what got Andrew Jackson, such notice. But yeah, so, I mean, that was the time we lived in when it took months to get. And if the ship sank, oh, well, I mean, we've gone from that level of rickety communication with the world around us to instantaneous. And, if Ambrose Bierce disappeared today, would he be lost? Probably not. But then?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I respect Joe Nickell. I didn't used to because I don't tend to like skeptics, but I've read up a lot on the guy and I get it. I understand he's a skeptic. Cool. Gotcha. But in this case, I strongly disagree with him. I don't think there's any evidence whatsoever that Bierce took his own life. And
That's the reason for the stuff. I mean, obviously there was a lot of tragedy. Obviously, he could have done that. I don't believe he would have.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
before he also had tragedy going on, and it wasn't. He didn't give up then.
Oh no.
He wrote stuff. He was writing out how he felt. Why would he just give up? He would start writing more. He would create more. The way he had to live influenced how he treated himself.
Yeah. I agree with that. But like I said, so I'm not with Joe Nickell so much on that. I think he made it to Mexico and probably died in a conflict there. I don't even know necessarily he died as part of a war. He was old and crotchety by that point. Mm-hmm. And he spoke, Spanish. So he could probably insult someone pretty well. So, I'm not saying his life was full of nothing but...
Person, you're rude.
I'm not saying his life was full of nothing but good choices, but I think his bones are in Mexico somewhere. And what little remains of them. But I also think that it's fascinating that he did so much. I mean, and then that level of conviction where he stood in front of a man who was literally offering him his dream, how much to make this go away. And how many of us can say we wouldn't have went, my family could use $1 million. Right. And for him to stand there and not do that and to say, it's not even the quote, but just the fact that he not only basically said, no, I don't want your damn bribe. No, how about you just pay what you owe?
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know a lot of people today with that level of conviction and strength of character.
I don't know, but I have it. And I generally think of myself as a fairly decent roommate.
I mean, I want to, have like money. I want to be successful, but I don't want to be successful through other people. So of course I probably do the thing. I might need money, but I want to work for that money. I don't want to just take it from people because they're, working on things there and they're supposed to be giving, like, yes, you owe a fee. That's what you're going to give it to.
And that's the other thing is I've read Bierce's stuff and some of it is lost on me because he writes very much in the vernacular of his day and he came up during the Civil War and so some of it is a hard slog for me. But I like a significant portion of what Bierce wrote.
Some of his morals are questionable, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. But I mean, he wrote a horror story based off what he saw at Shiloh, a Civil War battle that modern historians call horrible. And they call it one of the most horrible battles of the war. So, and he was in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I haven't read the whole story, but what I've read of it is it's like it was almost like being in a tornado of horror. Just, the world was spinning around you and everywhere you looked, something despicable was happening.
So like every pessimist's view of the world.
Yeah, I guess that
kind of like that's how they view it.
Yeah, and it just so. But he was talking about his thoughts. But see, like most of his fiction, he wrote within a 10 or 12 year span. And in fact, I love how self-deprecating he is. His collection of articles in England was called The Fiend's Delight. His first book of collected tales in America was called The Devil's Delight. So he has that self-deprecating thing going for him, and I love him for that. That's my sense of humor to a T, which gets me yelled at here at home quite a bit, I will say. Anyway, it just, I guess I'm moving into the final thoughts because my final thought is doing the research on this guy. Every time I turned around, I found out something else that impressed me about him. And while I am sure he was a drunk, we know this. He was a rampant drunk. We know that he cursed quite often in social occasions and didn't much care what others thought of him. But so I'm sure he had issues. But at the same time,
he also sounds like he was pretty dangerous.
Yeah, his heart, he's one of those people, his heart was in the right place. And like, I wish I would have been introduced to him in school.
Yeah.
So I guess that's my final thought on this. That and how does Ernest Hemingway keep sneaking onto our show?
We're going to have to change.
Ernest Hemingway!
We're going to have to change the name of the show from the Family Plot Podcast to the Family Plot Podcast. Hashtag will we see Hemingway this week?
Yeah, I know. Or with special guest Ernest Hemingway. I mean, that guy just keeps turning up in everything we do.
Every episode, Ernest Hemingway keeps popping up. Just beat Ernest Hemingway.
I guess. Guess at the end of the day, we have to kind of figure that after we've told almost over 200 stories, that Ernest Hemingway is a part of a lot of it.
Yep, he was everywhere.
The Ernest Hemingway highlights.
No, wait. So, like, one of those charts with the big main idea and then everything branching off of this. Giant bold letters. Ernest Hemingway!
And then
Just everything connected to it.
it was like one of those Connecting the Lines episodes from ID.
Yes. Yes.
Hemingway!
What?
I'll come in there too. I mean, it's gonna start Black Dahlia.
Yeah.
They all are like intersecting.
Like these are our like crosshatches that we keep getting.
Crosshatching.
That's our show for this week.
Well, does anybody else have a final thought about the name? Oh,
Ernest Hemingway is what we're gonna leave it on. It'll pop up next episode.
I forget what did I research yesterday? Yes, because I did the 200th episode yesterday.
I don't remember what you said it was gonna be.
Oh my. Wait. It's another odd one. Like Ambrose Bierce, you wouldn't think would be us, but I am so glad we did it. You wouldn't even believe. All right. But yeah, this tells you. Well, I also wrote a whole D&D adventure today, so forgive me for
your brain. Yeah.
Yeah. Here we go. It's the Amber Room. Next episode's on the Amber Room.
Ooh, that sounds cool.
Oh, you okay?
We'll talk about.
Yeah, we'll talk about it next week. But
we gotta do our in stuff.
Yeah. So, but yeah, next week's the Amber Room, which is interesting, and it connects back to another person we talk about a lot, Josh Gates.
Man crush.
So that's our show. Thanks for listening. Thanks for keeping us in the Good Pods Top 100. I love that. Also, weirdly, I got another email this week about us being in the top 200 Apple podcasts in Saudi Arabia. So, if you're in Saudi Arabia listening, hi, and thank you so much, and spread the love. Spread the love.
Where's the wax?
So,
just spread it on, sprinkle it on there like seasonings.
Yes. Thanks to
Sparkle. Yeah.
Thanks to our usual suspects. First and foremost, Bill Barrett, BEHRENDT. Bill did our theme music, and I am trying. I don't think he's going to do it, but I am trying to get him to do a extra special arrangement of it for the 200th episode. Not that he doesn't want to, just he's got a lot of irons in the fire. All the work we keep sending him.
Yeah. That's a good thing.
So yeah. So, but if you need him for a musical project or to play your wedding or anything like that, you can reach him at Bill Barrett at sbcglobal.net. Thanks also to Paige Elmore, formerly of the Reverie Crime podcast. An amazing crime podcaster she is. However, she also has a Canva addiction that she has combined with our 15-year-old Krista's artwork. Well, she was 11 at the time, I think.
At the time, I should redo it.
But yeah, she combined her love of Canva with our Krista's artwork to create some logo art for us. Thank you, Paige. Thanks also to Aaron Gnurk of the Big Dumb Fun Show, who continues to promote us locally. Thank you, Aaron. Please join our Facebook group. And we're getting more and more puns in there. Oh my! So people are learning that you have a love of puns and are sharing them with you.
Share some.
I had a really good pun.
Do
I ran the tyrannosaur, not tyrannosaur, but like the triceratops, the tricera.
There's a combo of Triceratops and tiramisu. It was like it had a triceratops head.
Tiramisu. It was a tiramisu.
Tiramisu.
I struggled.
It had a triceratops head, and then the body was the tiramisu, and then the tail was the.
Yeah, it had little feet too. So funny. I love that. That's really cool.
Anyway, that's our show for this week.
Yeah, that's our show. Bye.